Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Atlanta Film Festival's Creative Conference. My name is Linda Burns. I'm the conference director. Hopefully, if you were here in person, you enjoyed the 36 panels we put together. And if you weren't, hopefully you're enjoying the 9 virtual panels today. I have the fabulous actor turned actor, producer, writer, director, and we'll get more into that in a minute. Matt Servitto, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. It is clear I'm capable of being unemployed in many different ways. Writer, director, producer.
So let's start with acting. But first, I want to kind of talk about you grew up in Michigan and kind of the Detroit, not Detroit, but the Detroit side, kind of near Grosse Pointe Blank for people who are our age and would understand
Yep.
that reference. I'm curious what your parents did for a living.
There's no artistic background at all. My father was the first of the Italian side to go to college, and he was a biologist with a degree in biology that eventually migrated early on into computers and became a computer systems analyst, first for a private company, and then eventually worked for the Treasury Department for many years, decades, in Detroit. So always a science man, loved, shared all of his curiosity in everything with me. And then my mother was one of those old Kelly girls. She went to secretarial school in New York City and had to wear the white gloves and a little hat. And you took dictation and you had to learn to type, as fast as somebody could talk. And so she worked on and off as a secretary for 45, 50 years. And finally retired from a hospital near where I grew up. So, and really just, we would come east every year to visit family in New York. So I always had an infatuation with New York, with the East Coast, but really didn't kind of even consider like anything artistic until, I hate to say it, the High School Musical. I went to an all-boys prep school. We lived in the city. The city was kind of rough in Detroit City. And my parents made enough to send me to a private school. And it was an all-boys prep school, and the only thing we did with our sister school was theater. So I basically got into this to meet girls, and
course.
it's just amazing. And now I'm in it to meet amazing women. I love all the new directors and producers. So many. I have 2 daughters, both of whom I encourage to go into this business, just not acting. So I really I was an outlier. I mean, kind of being infatuated with the theater, with music, and then having the audacity to pursue it. But also with the encouragement of 2 parents who, said, don't look back. Just what are the best schools? Go at it hard. Like, all we ask is that whatever you do, you work really hard at it. And I knew the sacrifices they were making monetarily to send me off to New York City. Eventually ended up at Juilliard, and that kind of, that ticket kind of punches itself, at least to a point. Because I have many classmates that struggled. Some of them moved on into other disciplines or other worlds, past theater or show business, and but at least get you, a foot in the door, and in my case, much more.
So how did that High School Musical, like what about it really kind of grabbed you? Because obviously that wasn't a world you were interested in. And really back then, even in, Detroit side, I mean, I grew up on the opposite side. So I grew up on Lake Michigan, but also was from Benton Harbor. So same thing,
Yeah.
my parents made enough to send me to a school where I wouldn't get killed in the hallways.
Yeah.
But what was it? I did the High School Musical. I was like, okay, I had fun. It was a blast. But what made you say, oh, this is a career, I'm going to move to New York? Or when you did those trips back to New York, because I think you were born in Jersey, did you go see, theater or plays, or, where did that kind of come from? Because it was kind of an outlier out of the blue.
Yeah. I really only once I got older and was into musicals did I come to New York. I would include on that trip with the family a visit into New York City and see some Broadway shows. But really, truly, what I grew up in was a house with music. My father loved music, won some dance contests in high school, and when he was in the Marines, traveling the world, he'd always go to dance clubs. He just loved to dance. Had a great sense of music. He loved all these different styles of music. So there was music on in our house all the time. I inherited his many cases of old 45s. My dad loved to DJ a good party. So I grew up with music, but not necessarily theater. but we always watched, Sound of Music, Wizard of Oz, West Side Story, whenever those were on TV. And that just happened to be the musical my freshman year in high school. They did West Side Story. I thought it was only ever a movie. I had no idea it was a Broadway play. And I came home, just finished football, my first football season, captain of the team. And I'm, just another thuggy Detroit guy. And I come home and I say, Dad, they're having auditions for West Side Story. I thought that was only a movie. And he's like, no, it was a Broadway show for years and years, da da da. And I said, you should go out. You know all the songs. I said, yeah, I guess. I mean, it could be funny because he said it's a great like gateway drug for a young kid because it's kids your age fighting, singing, being in love, all that kind of stuff. So I did. I went out. I wasn't good, but I looked like the Sharks. The Sharks were all the Italian guys in school. All the Irish guys played the Jets. And oh my gosh, we still reminisce about that production all these years later. I mean, it was magical. We had this amazing director, amazing musical director. I'm not the only one that went on into theater from that world, that group, that magical, couple of years that we had there. So that was perfect. So then I went back to football. The next year they did Pippin. Guess who's Pippin? This idiot. And because I still had a falsetto, I could still sing up in that range, for Pippin. And again, it just kind of rolled on through 4 years. I'd always do the musical. And then 1 year in my senior year, the closest thing I ever came to doing drama was we did A Christmas Carol, just the straight up Dickens version. And I played Scrooge and I loved it. I just loved the drama. I loved kind of like the quiet. I mean, we do musical theater. It's all commotion. All of a sudden, there's a moment when you're on stage, you're the only one on stage and you were talking and an entire room of hundreds of people are all staring at you, listening to these amazing words that Charles Dickens giving you and watching this transformation. And it's magical. And that's when I kind of got the bug to go, well, next year, college, like, what am I doing? Like, I just knew, and I'm sure, you had the same experience. I knew I just didn't want to work in a factory. I mean, I came from a generation where we were probably the last generation, my generation, where there were still factory jobs in Detroit that you could walk right into. Union factory jobs like that paid super well. So there were plenty of guys that did not go on to college. And I knew I was going to college. I just didn't know what for. But I did think about journalism because I loved current events. I love politics. I still do. I'm a little drunk on it all now. But a little too much. But yeah, so journalism. But then, you get that one teacher, that one mentor that makes all the difference. I had my senior year, the director of the plays that we did pulled me aside and said, listen, I don't know what you're thinking about doing, but I don't see talent like yours come through here that often. I think I could get you a theater scholarship to the local college, which was Wayne State University in downtown Detroit. Very good theater program. It's mostly a commuter college.
Yep.
They had invested a lot of money and time into the theater department. And we had the one thing there was plenty of in downtown Detroit in the early 80s was empty spaces. So we had 3 beautiful theaters that the university had bought and renovated. So and one night you could be in the black box, 100 seats doing a Mammoth play. Then, you're at the Bonstel, which is seats about 1,000, doing a musical. And then we had the Hillberry Theater, which was more of about 800 seats, doing Shakespeare. So it was the training there was basically throw the baby in the water and it'll learn how to swim. We just did a ton of theater. I think I did 12 plays in 2 years. I mean, it was nonstop.
Wow.
And but I did get that scholarship through his help and through working really hard on some auditions, doing stuff I'd never done, putting language in words in my mouth that Shakespeare and Chekhov and Arthur Miller, and I mean I was still too young to process probably a lot of the intellectual and emotional things that were being said, but I knew all these feelings were coming up, and I was like, I really love this experience night after night working with people. And I'll get back to that collaboration. That was one of the things that I loved, was working with other people. And more, this business is becoming an army of one, in that you audition alone. You very often, so much starting before COVID, through COVID now, of this business. You don't do meetings. You don't collaborate. You just kind of get hired, come in almost in a sanitary way, and then go away kind of thing. But so the collaboration was what I fell in love with. And I really kind of, people said, when did you decide you wanted to be an actor? I said, I'm still working it out at my age now. Because I really just had the luck of, there's that great Peter Sellers movie Being There, where I just seem to kind of, I get the scholarship to the local college. I get into Juilliard. I get a job right out of Juilliard. So I work in soap operas for, on and off for 10 years.
I
And
want to I
yeah,
want to jump into the soap operas. What was it that, obviously you had this amazing theater background, which is very intellectual, especially with all the authors you mentioned. You go into soap operas, good paying work, no shade on soap operas, but that was very different. And the way they shoot them is very different.
yeah.
What was the kind of takeaway? What did you learn from those years? You were doing other movies as well, but what was the takeaway from those soap opera years that you think has maybe helped you over the course of your career? Is there a lesson learned there?
Yeah, I mean it's the quickest one you learn, which is you can't be precious about the work. It's soap operas are basically TV factories. I mean you're turning
Yeah.
out an episode every day. Where on what people don't love, you don't realize like there was episodes of Sopranos that we shot that took 15 days,
Yeah.
20 days. Yeah, every day we're turning out a new episode, and the main star of soap operas was the story, the ongoing stories. Your acting is not what is important. The stories that these writers have written that the fans love, like, oh my God, she slept with him and now he's going to kill her and now she's bankrupt. And
He's back from the dead.
yeah, I mean, honest to God, so those ridiculously fun storylines, and coming out of actually 6 years of theater training, including going to England. I studied a semester at the British American Drama Academy at Oxford. I mean, I am like amped, like I'm on steroids for classical theater, for theater, for Broadway, off Broadway, and the first gig is a soap opera. And they say, yeah, take all that Juilliard and Oxford, throw that out the window, hit your mark, find your light, don't cut off the other actor, and action. And it really was. And so immediately I'm trying to bring all this, Juilliard juju to soap operas. And one of the directors like, Matt, you're working way too hard. And so basically what I decided to do, because we had none of this at Juilliard, was use the whole experience as camera training. And it was. I learned how to use a camera, to act in front of a camera. And I'll give a great little story. So the director that did call me out on it, he said, I hate to say it, but you're a little bit of a crew whore. And I said, what is this? He goes, you're playing for the crew. You love when like the boom operator comes like, hey man, nice scene. And the gaffer and the grip, they're all like, Servitto, nice work, man, nice work. He said, I want your performance to be so small and intimate that the crew's not even exactly sure what you're doing. He said, you are throwing your performance past the lens. You're playing to everyone that's behind the camera. He said, your performance ends at that lens. If it's too big for that lens that is only about 2 feet from your face, it is too big for my show. Because don't stop playing that to your audience. You're a theater guy and you want an audience. Your audience is 20 million people out there every afternoon tuning in to All My Children, and they're watching the lens. So great lesson. I mean, I honestly got like a 40 years of doing this. That was one of the best things ever said to me. I'm like, oh my God, he's right. I have been playing past the lens, and it was a great lesson to the rest of my career. Is just let it end right there. And if people are kind of like, while you're doing it, it doesn't read, because some of the best actors I worked with, I'm like, that guy does nothing. Yes, that's it. It's the old adage, don't just do something, stand there. And some of these people, you learning to let the audience put its own feelings onto your performance. Do you know what I mean? Like so often I wanted to portray something where if I'm keeping a lot of it in, the audience is like, oh, he's really angry at her. I said, when I edited stuff that I've directed, I literally had a guy standing there between takes. We didn't cut. So he just stood there. I'm like, just stand there. We're going to roll again in about 30 seconds. And he just stood there. And when I saw it in the editing room, I'm like, stop. I want that. I'm going to use that clip right there. He was doing nothing, just staring straight ahead. And I said, he could be thinking, what time is lunch? Or I so am in love with this actress I'm talking to, and it's just incredible. So I've spent my entire career, and I've heard a lot of other actors talk about that kind of, I won't say dumbing down your skill set, but just learning a whole new one. I used to think Tom Cruise, who cares? He's amazing. He's an amazing film actor. And that you begin to have a deeper appreciation for those that really, really do it. And then there's people like Denzel Washington who's on Broadway right now and goes right back to doing incredible film performances. So, but going all the way back to soaps, I miss it, and it was a great training ground for tens of thousands of New York actors because
Oh, absolutely.
LA always had prime time. We, New York on the East Coast, had daytime, and it was just a great place to get a credit, build your resume, get a reel. And I always said if they got rid of the National Endowment for the Arts, long as they have soap operas, we're all going to make a little money, get our insurance, and learn how to act in front of a camera. Because, like I said, I have tapes of some of those, early episodes. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bad. But the audience didn't care. You'd meet them like, we love your character. They loved you. They loved what the writing was, and all that kind of stuff. So, and those fans were just so devout. I mean, I still run into them this day, and it's like, you see their hand on their, like, oh my God, oh my children, we miss you. We love that show. My mother watched it.
I had
watched it.
roommates in college who picked their classes
Yes.
because this was before VCRs. There was, so they changed their classes for All My Children, General Hospital, whatever it was. And yeah, they were huge.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of TV, you've done a lot of movies. Do you have a preference? And if so, why?
The only preference I have is comedy. I love comedy, whether it's theater, film, TV. I love, love, love comedy. It's in my DNA. I unfortunately I've got a face that can look really good when it's pissed off. It can feel threatening. When you're monochromatic, it's sort of like you just take that stare and it's just sort of like boom, and then I'm a bad guy. I'm the cop that's heard every, alibi. I mean, so I stay in New York and I have a very robust career. I always tell people the best acting you'll see all year is me being serious. And everybody that knows me knows that. So here I am later in my later years trying to break into comedy, not stand up, not sketch necessarily, but sort of producing, directing, writing, all of the stuff I missed for 30 years. Because that joy of making people laugh. I mean, I grew up in a household with a lot of laughter. I have raised my kids. I'm sure I've screwed them up in many other ways, but they have my sense of humor. And I said, listen, you can be in the worst situations as long as you can find a joke or throw the joke that makes everybody laugh. Life will go on and on. So that is truly my preference at this point. And really, my bucket list. I mean, a lot of my friends came out of school like, oh, I want to play Hamlet. They had a list of roles that they wanted to play and people they wanted to work with. That's also, I suppose, what I'm picking and choosing at this point. Is who I work with, because at a certain point, I'm sure you went through the same experience. Life is short. You're like, I don't want to work with idiots anymore. I want to work with cool people, and because there's tons that have both. They're really nice, really cool, and super talented. And there are some hyper talented jerks and bitches, to use a word. But I mean, just I always tell people, I'm like, they're like, what are the people you work with? This actor, that actor, what are they like? I said, here, this is the bottom line. Whoever is America's sweetheart is usually the worst human being on the planet, and whoever all the people, the guys and gals that play the baddies, they're the nicest people. I mean, Danny Trio. I mean, my God, that guy, like, sweetest. Went to prison in real life. Just the nicest people. So they're actors. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're all acting. But so yeah, I mean, like that's kind of where I'm at this juncture, is trying to. I think there's less of like, what do I want to, who do I want to work with? I should say who I don't want to work with, and what kind of projects I don't want to do. But I shouldn't even pretend that I'm still financially in a great place that I can pick and choose. I mean, I read everything. Every script that comes in, I give it a really hard look.
So, and that's my next question. Thank you for that perfect transition. When, as an actor, because we're going to get into the directing stuff in a bit, as an actor, when you're reading a script, what is your kind of process for not only deciding if you want to take that position, and then also what is your process to become that character?
Yeah, I mean, very often, that there is. I mean, it's so funny because you find yourself doing the things you hate. Like all of a sudden, I will just read 10 pages and say, that's it. That's all I'm gonna. And I hate to say it, but if you're a young director, writer, I mean, those first 10 to 20 pages, because you wouldn't be amazed. You're like, yeah, that's the truth. How often, within 2 to 3 pages, I can tell, can you write? Did you do spell check? Listen, there's so
Spell
many
check is
tools.
such a thing. Why is this so hard?
Yeah, it is. There is, because you have a generation that texts. So
Yeah,
grammar's not important, punctuation's not important. If I'm reading a script and you haven't, because guess what? It's just lazy because you don't even have to work on the spelling. You have spell check. You don't have to work on the structure. You have final draft. I mean, it's putting it all, it does all the work for you. You just have to press a few more buttons and make sure it's all buttoned up. And I'm telling you, I know it sounds like, oh, back in my day. I'm just telling you, within
true.
2 or 3 pages, I see two typos. I'm like, this isn't
Mm.
serious. They're not serious. And the story may be good, but I'm kind of done here already. Um, but also, there's also still something to be said for youth. I was just having this discussion with a friend. When you have that success story where this is a friend, Arturo Castro, very well-known actor. He's got a big movie. He did Tron for Disney, and he was just saying he just did a big feature film, or actually he's coming to New York to do a big feature film. And he said, I did this woman's student film when she was at Columbia 10 years ago. And he says, you do those student films just on the off chance. We've got in New York, we've got Columbia, we've got NYU in California, USC, Atlanta's got schools. I mean, you do these little films, 8-minute films. Some of those people are going to succeed. They have to. We always need new directors. There's always a new crop. And all of a sudden, this moment happens where he gets a call to play a lead, and she has become a big in-demand director. And I did the same thing. I did a ton of student films. So that's also what I ask. I mean, who is this? I mean, is this somebody, I hate to be ageist, but I mean, if it's somebody that's 50 that's never made it, that's just deciding now they want to kind of get into writing, maybe retire and start working in the business, as opposed to a young, hungry 21-year-old girl who just wrote this incredible story that was part of her family, really personal story. And even if the script isn't buttoned up, I'm like, ooh, there's passion here. And
Yeah.
it even says, this happened to me and I'm writing a script about it, putting a little, I mean, even just a pitch deck or a page attached to the script. I did it on the thing I just sold. I did a whole little thing about why and how, and you'd be amazed how you can personalize something in a very quick fashion. Whether it's just, this is a story I've always wanted to tell, or it's a story that was told to me by my grandfather that happened in World War II, and this is how I imagined it happen. I'm like, oh, I'm with you. Now it's two people having a drink at a bar telling stories. So the vetting process for me, as I said, and also make no mistake, man. I mean, this is the funny thing as I'm producing now. I mean, money talks. I mean, I can read the worst script in the world, and it's like, this is what? How much are they? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me reread it with that in mind. I mean, it's just sort of like, some of the worst stuff has the most money. You know this. I mean, it's sort of like, and
Heartbreaking.
I can shut my mouth with the best of them. I mean, when I see these stories about how, like, Will Ferrell passed up doing Elf 2, they literally offered him like $50 million and like half of the back end because they knew it couldn't fail. And he said, no, why would you ruin Elf? It's perfect. It's a perfect holiday comedy.
And he also has enough money. He can say, no, this shouldn't be done, and that is not, sadly, what every actor has the power to be and shut down, as we see with all these things that keep being remade over and over and over and over again. But that was a brilliant move. But that is also a privileged move. You have to have a lot of power and a lot of money in the bank to be able to say no.
Oh,
that is sure.
Yeah, big time.
So,
and I'm sorry, let me just finish, because you did ask about the preparation for that role. That also goes back to what I said earlier about the sort of discretionary, the sort of the throwaway world we've gotten into. I mean, there used to be a really emphasis, like we used to literally do table reads ahead of time, rehearsal. Oh my God. And so much of that is gone. And really, a lot of the self-tape stuff, you're not getting any direction. And you also don't get almost any direction on set anymore. I mean, everyone's afraid. It's all become celebrity society. So you don't really tell Robert Downey Jr. how to do his scenes. You just hire Robert, let him do the magic. And I mean, so many of the big time actors that I love and respect love working, collaborating with directors, sitting with the writer, going over the scenes. So the time they've taken all of that time, because a lot of that was on the clock.
that costs money.
costs money to get everybody in a room for a read through, gets for rehearsals. Sometimes you'd go away, like the director would invite like 4 of the cast members to a lodge, and you'd go and rehearse and take walks and talk about the story. And oh my God, it's the stuff you fantasize about in acting school. You're like, I'm going to be working with great people and we're going to talk about ideas. And I did have those moments, and I hope it's not gone. And I'm sure it's probably still happening on some level, somewhere, maybe above my pay grade. I don't know. But I do feel that that preparation, and very often, especially with television, as I said, that's why soaps helped me, because it made me not be so precious. With TV, sometimes you're hired, on a Wednesday, you get fitted on Thursday, and you're shooting on Friday. So your preparation is barely learning your lines. And then maybe getting to set and saying, do I care about this? Or is this, to the writer saying, and then you quickly get a note like, no, that's not a big deal. What you really care about is that. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Okay, great. And off we go. So that, that short form storytelling where they're just looking for, archetypes where they just punch you in, like you're the bad lawyer, you're the good cop, you're this, it just doesn't leave a lot of time. And I have jobbed in to so many shows, so many procedurals, and very often, how do you act exposition? It's just telling the audience what happened last week. And I got really good at that because it was required on the soaps, I'm sure you remember. You would have a speech that literally would be, listen, Linda, I know, I broke your
We
heart.
both know that.
Yeah, we both know that A, B, C happened, and then D did happen, and I feel bad about G. But now let's talk about us, and that I learned to do it. I was on another show where one of the characters, this was a show recently, and it was a big HBO thing, and somebody was screaming and yelling kind of about this exposition. And I said, dude, it's okay. It's okay. I just read somewhere where Netflix is requiring this now. There was a whole article saying Netflix started to, because there's a style, I'm not going to remember the name, a style of viewing called Netflix viewing, where you're kind of watching, maybe it's on as background, and every like 12 minutes or something, they want a line or suggestion to keep the audience, like if you missed a section, you can get caught up. And people are like, oh my, it's turning into soaps all over again. This whole concept of like, we just want to keep the audience glued to Netflix. So if they don't have to go back, or they'll say, oh, forget it, turn it off. It's like, no, just keep them comfortable, and we'll get you back on the story with a few lines and stuff. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, that's depressing.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, I mean, looking at your long list of things, do you feel like TV and being in New York kind of stereotyped you? I mean, you've got the SUVs, and
SVU.
I just bought a car.
No, I know.
SVUs. I mean, you have done all the quintessential New York television that again keeps everybody busy, that keeps everybody working, which is a fabulous place. Do you feel like you got typecast in these roles? And I mean, there's some benefit to that because it keeps you working, but how do you feel about that?
I always tell young actors, when I have friends that teach, they bring me in, I say, embrace your stereotype. If you want to work in television, you don't have to. I mean, as an actor, you can continue to kind of demand authenticity and demand, a sort of range of roles. But I always say, I used whatever stereotype, like, okay, you're the, New York Italian guy who could be a cop, you could be a mob guy. We're just going to job you in. You've got 2 scenes with De Niro, blah, blah, blah. All I say is the stereotyping is going to get you in the door. What you do with that role is up to you. And that's what I've done. That's what I've been able to do, is that, very often it's like, yeah, they just punched me in. Like, we know him. He's a known quantity. He's a good actor. He's going to deliver. So I look at the role and I'm like, oh my God, I've done this 100 times. What can I do differently? And I'll either say, hey, could this guy be maybe shy around, this one guy and just really intimidate or something, like, yeah, I like that. I mean, maybe that's why you don't speak in that scene. I said, yeah, maybe he's just totally intimidated by this guy. And maybe you'll just see a look on my face. It'll just be just kind of a moment where you just see me and I don't want to talk to him, or maybe there's a pass there, whatever. That's kind of what I've been able to do. And very often, especially if I got a recurring role, That's what's awesome is the writers watch your performance and they begin to write into your strengths. For example, Banshee, I did 4 years on a show called Banshee, which was an HBO show produced for Cinemax, and we did 4 seasons. And playing again a sheriff, and I'm like, oh. Now again, it was a small town sheriff. I hadn't really done that. I'm always big city guy, but initially he was very serious, very heavy, heavy. And the more time the writer spent with me offset, I mean, we just laughed our heads off, just having fun, whether it was just offset or going out to dinner afterwards or whatever. So they started working in this kind of dry sense of humor for my character, and it was so much fun. And then they also gave him a big heart because everybody on that show was crazy, violent, this and that. And I became sort of the sheriff with the big heart and a dark sense of humor. And I loved it. Like I said, you go from season 1 to where it ended in season 4. And that's that kind of transition. Only a handful of actors, are that successful that you get a whole series, And then again, that sort of happened with Sopranos, where I was just jobbed in to play an FBI agent, but somewhere, somehow, somebody saw some of the first episodes I did with Jim, and they saw that I kind of felt bad for him. Like we were raiding his house in front of his kids, threatening him with this and that. And by, season 2, that you saw that Agent Harris struggled with taking down this because he saw probably him, like that was the cool thing about the show was I'm a suburban dad who's an FBI agent. He's a suburban dad who's the head of the mob, but we both got kids that are driving us crazy. We both stop and shop and grab the steaks on sale. That was that kind of who's good, who's bad world, and but everyone talks about that whenever I do interviews with the show. They said by the end, you were literally helping Tony, like with insider trading, insider information. I said, yeah. I said, it changed everything with me. It changed everything with the fans. And I said, they hated my character the first few seasons. And by the last few seasons, I was basically a friend. I'd come and visit him. We'd sit and have espresso, talk a bit about the world and, what's happening. And I'd give him a little intel and a wink and head out the door. And so that came from the same thing. The writers just sort of seeing a quality. But as I said, those are luxuries, and when you're just jobbing in, and sometimes I can't tell you how many times I'd be on the subway going home not feeling good about the work because it's a procedural. And I came in and I had 2 lines in court as a lawyer and you just want to do something. But sometimes, as George Clooney likes to say, sometimes, all you're there to do is deliver the pizza. That was your job today. You were the pizza delivery guy. And, those 2 lines in the court, somebody had to say them and somebody had to make it believable. And that's all you had to do today. And doing more would have drawn attention to yourself and not been good for the show. So those are all the hard lessons. I mean, the train ride homes, and later on you realize, no, you did your job. Sometimes your job is huge, physical stunts, all that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's just, and it's hard because we're built as actors with all these acting muscles. We want to use them. We want to do things. And as I said, it's just learning to kind of manage that muscle tone that you've got,
I didn't realize that that comedy was something that you were interested in, but that brings me to Satan and Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell, which is where you and I met. How did that how did that come about? Was it something that they knew that you were the guy, or did they put out a casting call? How did that come about?
That, believe it or not, was just straight up audition. I had, I'm trying to think where I was at that point. Sopranos was done, and I was.
You were, I think, on Banshee, because I remember calling you a couple times, and you're like, "Yeah, they just got me sitting in this trailer every day, and I haven't gone to work yet." So I'm pretty sure you were on Banshee. At least
I was,
yeah.
but before I got Banshee, just before I got Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell on Adult Swim, and so Banshee, believe it or not, was working around Adult Swim. They were both owned by the same parent company, which saved my butt because they agreed to work it out. So I don't know if you remember, we were working weekends. I would work all week on Banshee, fly to Atlanta Friday night. We'd shoot Saturday, Sunday.
Right. Yes.
So because we would take Monday, Tuesday off on that work schedule. But yeah, it was just an audition. And so few comedies cast in New York. Almost everything comedically is cast out of Los Angeles. It's kind of the comedy capital, and this happened to be like I said, this was an oasis in a desert. I mean, so many serious shows, and here comes this silly Adult Swim show looking for a Satan, and I get the audition. Dave Willis and Chris Kelly are in this room, and I just come in and do my own spin. I've been working on this thing, and gave it and they're howling, laughing at everything I'm doing. And I'm like, God, I have such good instincts for this. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying this has always, that's also, I mean, one of the things I like about comedy, when it works and when it doesn't. Drama, did it work? I don't know. Did it have the right effect? Not sure. It's not as apparent. So the idea that I went in a room, busted everybody's gut, and then left. I left feeling really, really good. I think they called me back probably a week later, and then I got hired. And then the show got put on hold. I think they cast me in September. They had to wait all the way to the following spring to start shooting. And by that point, I had Banshee. So yeah, it was just a straight up audition. And as I said, if more comedy cast in New York, I mean, for a while we had the Michael J. Fox Spin City. There just has been such so few comedies. Then the premium cable networks came through and started doing some, Sex and the City, and Delocated,
30 Rock, and
yeah, yes, 30 Rock, obviously. So but I'm talking at that time, so few shows. So finally the comedy started coming to us, and like, of course, this Your Pretty Face shot in Atlanta, so. Which leads me to my infatuation with Atlanta. I love it. I love working there. I love the people. I had so much fun. I would just brag about the crews in Atlanta, the restaurants in Atlanta, and because you just get so New York, LA centric when you kind of coming out of the world I came of, late '80s. There was two coasts, and you had to pick one, and all of a sudden there's a third coast, nowhere near the coast, that became a place that we all love to work. And look, as much as I love Toronto, I just love the idea of keeping jobs here in Atlanta, in the States. And you always knew when you were up there, like, this doesn't look like New York City, or this doesn't look like, this looks like Toronto. And so I really did and it started with, Your Pretty Face, and then just so many other things I ended up shooting down there. And and even now I've kind of kept a lot of that crew together from that show to create content, because I thought, man, we've got something special here. And I'd like to keep, like I said, when you find people you like to work with, you stay together. So
yeah, that was a good group.
Yeah, great group.
I will say one thing that was fascinating for me, because I only knew you as the straight guy, the drama guy, and watching you sitting in the room while you were putting on the costume and we were kind of figuring that out, I will never forget you putting on the studded cod piece, and literally, like, I'm just watching you're kind of walking a little bit in those god awful high heels, and just seeing you kind of figure out the physicality. You obviously had the humor down, but physically putting on the costume and watching you kind of, as the costume was layering, you were layering, was really, really fun to see. Like, that's one of those moments that I just won't forget, because it was so outrageous, but delightful to see that moment, because it's rare when I'm ever around for any part of that, because I was kind of more the nuts and bolts producer. And I'm usually doing stuff, and I happened to be there, and I was like, well, let's see how this goes. And we weren't sure how you were going to take anything, and of all these things we were putting on you. And it was a delightful moment.
I thought, when I auditioned for the show, I thought Satan was like in a 3-piece suit. Like, I literally, because I think I auditioned in a suit, and they kept suggesting he's a boss. Like, either he could be a mob boss, but he could be just like a jerk boss that, like, everybody hates in a corporation. But, he's kind of like button up, like, shut up, get out of my office, And so I get down to Atlanta. I'm not kidding. The whole time. I book it. I go, they fly me down for what they called, costume fitting and maybe a makeup test. I didn't know what the makeup test meant. I thought, okay, maybe they're going to make my face red, kind of make me look like Satan a little. Oh my gosh. They put me in a hotel. It felt like prepping for a porn movie. Like, everything felt really weird. I'm in this, in this hotel room, there's a giant cod piece hanging on a hanger. There's all this other accoutrement that looks like sexy, with like gold chains and open silk shirts. And I'm like, what is this show? Like, and I get, like, they start, like, shut up, put me in the chair, spray paint my face red, glue on 2 horns, put the cod piece on, put everything on, look in the mirror and go, are you kidding me? This is what we're doing? This is what I've been hired to, okay. Okay, I mean, immediately, this was, I think, immediately, this was before they used to stop you on social media. I had that stuff up on my phone within a half an hour. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. This is what Juilliard is doing. And holy hell, man, that was that was my worst nightmare. But as you said, you put all that on, you've got it. You have to do the opposite. You have to do so little, because really, I had giant hair, giant horns, the beard, the whole thing. You just and really, it's when you humanize that. So when Satan would literally have his readers on his on his nose and have his scotch, you'd be like, what? It was just making him, even though he looked like that, he had to be this kind of fallible human character. In the end, we discovered he wasn't even really Satan. He was just called Satan. There was like 1,000 Satans in hell, and there was super Satan somewhere in the deeper, region on Dante's like ninth ring or something. So it really, for all of that, it was a work comedy. I never, everyone always says like, what I said, it's a work comedy. If
Work
work is
comedy,
hell.
completely. Yeah.
That's it. And
Was
really,
brilliant.
we kept saying we need protests. We need the really religious people to protest the show. And they were like, no, because we're really only fulfilling the idea that Satan's a terrible person, and you
Yeah.
don't want to end up in hell. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So no protests. I'm like, damn it. We've got it. That would have been our, marketing campaign. Like, pay some students to just stand out there like Satan is evil. It's like, yeah, but that's the problem. It is, so.
So shortly after that, and I'll get back to your pretty face in a second. So you're doing that show, but then while you're doing that, well, actually, no, you directed an episode
I
before
did.
you did Good Head, right?
Ooh.
I'm
Yes.
thinking
Yes,
time.
before.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So how did that come about? Like, had you known you wanted to direct? Is this a thing you had wanted to do? Because up to that point, I didn't see short films or anything. Like, how did you end up directing an episode? Because I wasn't there. I did the first
yeah.
season and I'm like, you're paying me $350 to produce this per day. I'm out. I'm done.
And I'm getting $350 a week as an actor. I'm out. Oh no, I'm still
Yeah.
here. No, once we got picked up for a fourth season, even by that point, like Craig Rowan, who was one of the characters, was also a screenwriter, and he's now
Yep.
incredibly successful LA screenwriter. He started writing some episodes. Henry, we were all talking about like writing episodes ourselves, and then for the first 3 years, because Dave and Chris came from the animation world, we'd be on set and they'd be setting a camera, and I'd go, camera's got to be over here. This is crossing the axis, or Dave, what if you shot over my shoulder and then I turned the camera, and he'd be like, oh, that's great, because in animation they could manipulate the picture any way they wanted with animation. In the live action world, they were on a learning curve those first couple seasons,
Yep.
and did an amazing job. They were incredible, but so they would kind of defer to me as like, oh, Servitto, what do you think, Mr. Procedural? What do you think? I said, this is probably right. So it was always kind of there, like, why don't we give this idiot a chance, kind of thing. And it was perfect, because really having, never directed, the only thing that it started was I kept putting myself in things I was directing, and it just became a bad habit, because one of those things is hard enough: acting in something, directing in something. And I just didn't have the choice with this. It was an episode that I was not featured in a lot, so that helped tremendously. But yeah, it was also like directing your friends. Nobody was critical. They're just like, hey, one of us is directing. This is fun.
Such a great welcoming environment. I mean, that's what I missed about leaving the show is great crew, hysterical cast, and
Yeah,
it really was a nice supportive family there.
yeah,
And luckily the fact that those two were collaborative really made it. For all the other toxic network stuff, for
yeah,
me, that was like, if I can just get on set and get away from the execs, like life is good. And I think that was the perfect thing for you to start. But
yeah,
it was something that you had wanted to do
yeah.
and that you had pursued? Like, when did you get that nugget of, I think I want to direct? Has that always been a thing, or where'd that come from?
Well, I just think on that particular show, and you'll see this if you check the credits every once in a while. I mean, even it happened on Sopranos. We had some, like Michael Imperioli started writing episodes. There's Friends. You'll see like David Schwimmer directed an episode later in the seasons.
Yeah.
At a certain point, when you're on a successful show, you're looking for more. you know, and you are stuck on that show. And when it's a show like that, you're very happy to be stuck there because it's great. It's great comedy. We're having fun. We have a ton of input. And you're right, the network left us alone. I mean, half the time Dave would write some crazy idea into a script just to see if anybody was reading the scripts.
Yeah.
He's like, nope, got through. We're not going to shoot that, but nobody noticed it. So we were left alone. And I knew this was, I mean, just because I was familiar with the crew, and they gave me an episode that was really fun. It was huge. In scope for us. I mean, we you know, the sets were much bigger than what we usually used, and we had a whole VFX scene on a lake. We had another VFX scene in a diner. So I mean, I got to do green screen. I got to do, you know, practical effects, special effects, and Dave and Chris were over my shoulder, laughing and tapping me in the right direction because, you know, very often I couldn't see the post. On a show like that, you have to be able to visualize the post. And
Yeah.
Dave would just
That was a
come over and say,
tough one.
listen, yeah. So that was great because, you know, that part of the business had eluded me. I really knew that I could do straight up. I definitely knew I could do a Law and Order at that point. I'd done so many.
Were they still shooting those like 30 to 40-minute episodes and then cutting them down? Because
No.
that's what they did the first season. I was like, man, just get to the jokes. Like, let's
Yeah.
not shoot all this other stuff. We're wasting money. So I'm glad they
Yeah.
changed that then. Good.
Yeah, it was basically like shooting a short film, but with a lot of money because you could
Yeah.
do a lot of effects. And like I said, that lesson of having a, you know, producer director say, listen, that's really cool. When we get to post, that's not going to cut. So let's get a plate. And I'm like, oh, right, a plate. And then we can put Henry right there because right now that's not going to cut. I'm like, oh, right. You know, make a note of that kind of thing. And yeah, so it was just really a lot of hand holding. And so I got out of that experience and like, that was really cool. And then the next thing that came up was, again, that show was over, Banshee was over, and some friends asked me, they had some money. They were doing a collection and what they call a, what do you call it? It's a collection of,
Apology?
yes, an anthology of horror movies and short films, comedy, and they had some money. They had some serious money. So they gave me, I could be honest about it, a budget of around $36,000 to $40,000 that if you see the movie looks like 200,000 because I cashed in all my Atlanta favors. I used the same crew.
Yeah.
I mean, my VFX guy, Derek King, amazing, basically did it for free. You know, Tim Reese produced it for me. Shane Morton, amazing effects artist, and Chris Brown built costumes. I mean, so they hated me because all these short films come together in an anthology. And the rest of them all looked like, you know, something you shoot in 5 days, and you know, acting. I mean, every actor in my thing was like an amazing comedy actor. The VFX are insane. So, and it ended up. I asked them, can I take this out on its own and sort of run it around the film festival circuit? Well, unfortunately, it was during COVID, but for 2 years we won every award. Everywhere
I saw
we
it
went.
won a lot of awards.
Yeah,
that's
in fact, at some point you stop because you're just like, I mean, do you need, unless you really want to go to Spokane Film Festival and you know, get the award, it's going to cost you to go there and all that stuff. But we just, we had a blast with it. It got a ton. It would have gotten more attention if people were able to sit in the seats. So many of those festivals were virtual.
Yep.
And I went to some when they started opening up again. I went to some, but even then, you know, in a theater that's at 200, there'd be 25 people because people just still weren't comfortable back in theaters yet. So anyways, that kind of, then I really got the bug because that was just so much fun. That was exactly what I thought directing would be, like working with the same people again, you know, having a really, really good script, having talented people, and making the most. I knew that coming at directing so late in my career, not that it's that late, that I would have to cash favors and work on low budget, and you circle back to low budget. And I love low budget because there is a creativity that comes with not a lot of money. We did it on Your Pretty Face. I mean, it was Adult Swim, and we did a lot with a little, and so I got used to learning how to do that, and I love the challenge. I would love the challenge of really, you know, trying to make everything look great and not feel cheap, and so that just continued on. So then I did this short film called Matthew about a high school shooter, and that was serious. I mean, there's not
that's heavy drama.
Heavy drama, not a laugh in it, and that thing was incredibly successful. I just, again, what was I able to do? Hire New York actors. I was able to hire. We did a SAG contract, even though you don't have to because it's short film. We paid them SAG wages because I said to the producers, it was somebody else's script. And I said, and here he was. This is a classic example. Older director. This is a guy that worked in business world for years who wants to write screenplays. So he wrote this, read this article about a high school shooter who gets out of jail, thought it was really interesting, wrote a short script about it. And he comes to me. He's got money because he worked in business. So I said, the only thing I ask is that we hire SAG actors because you're going to see a difference in the quality of the actors that we're going to get. And immediately I got Brian Keene, who's just plays the father. He's amazing. And we were able, off Ezra Knight, who's the New York president of SAG, came in. I mean, these were just me. They didn't, they saw my name on their phone, like, yeah, man. Like, I don't even care what you're doing. And I'm like, oh, and then it turned out we were doing something really actually pretty good and pretty cool. So, so again, the bug continued, and I'm just now going off, but I mean, I go all the way to my first feature film, which then it all fell apart. And that, you know, I just went farther, I think faster and farther than I could. And I did a Western. And
I was going to ask you, what made you choose a Western for your first feature? Because I mean, Western horror, right? It was
Western horror.
It still had that horror feel, but like, I mean, you know, go big or go home. I mean, a Western is very, very challenging. What made you pick that? Or what, you know, was that a little hubris, or did you always wanted to do a Western? Like, was it just the right script at the right time? What led you to Western?
Right script. What happened is, I mean, again, this is dictated by COVID, because so much of my directing career is kind of coming up and then going through COVID. And we had another project that we were going to go shoot in Europe, a comedy, road trip comedy. And this is the same producing team that I kind of met working as an actor out of DC area. And I was marrying this Baltimore DC group with the Atlanta guys and girls, and we were kind of coming together to form a loose company that we could kind of go back and forth to both places and do comedy, low budget features. We had this script, and then COVID happened, so we can't go over there. So we're kind of like, once we all realized how long COVID was going to last, we thought, what are we going to do? We're just not going to do anything for a year? We're going to sit on our hands? And we had raised some money, and so one of the guys comes to me and he goes, I wrote this a while ago. It's a Western, but it's a small cast. I mean, that was the biggest issue. Is like having a big Western and a bunch of people. You couldn't legally do it at that point, or it would have been very, very difficult with unmasking 100 people on a set. So he said it's just like 5 or 6 characters. These 2 cowboys come off the range to a town called Purgatory that they've been going to for 5-10 years. That this is the place they come to get a steak, get drunk, get in a bar fight, and head back out on the range. And they come into town like, here we go, clip-clop, clip-clop. Nobody's there. It's empty. And I mean, they were just there like 2 months ago, and now town's empty. Is it disease? Did the Indians come through? Did the army push everybody out of the town? Like, nobody can figure out. And that's the whole movie. And then once they realize what's happened, then they can't get out, and they're stuck. And now, the whole thing is, will they get out? And it's a small cast. They find a few other survivors, and that's it. They band together. So it was the perfect COVID script. Perfect. And we were going to shoot it in New Mexico, Arizona. We were scouting. Very strict rules in the States. And one of the producers we were going to work with in Europe, we said, we're going to do this Western. He goes, oh, I have this old West town just short of Vienna. I will find it. I will send you, So he goes, makes videos, and we're like, oh my God. He goes, yeah, they built this. It was a tourist attraction, like 20 years ago. They love American Westerns. So the Bavarian families would bring their kids, and they'd go to the saloon, and like a fight would break out with the stunt guys, and the railing would break every time. And then you take a little train, and the train would get robbed as it would go around the town. The horse, then the bad guys would ride into town. There'd be a shootout in the town square. They loved it. And then you'd get served like a steak dinner and send you home with like your own cowboy hat. I mean, the kids loved this one on, and well, it went broke. He had like 3 of them all over Bavaria. And so this is the town we get, and we go there during COVID, maybe the coldest spring they've had in Austria in years, tons of snow, which we didn't write for. We would literally, like we would do, coverage this way, beautiful blue sky. In the time it would took to turn the world, snow. So now we're like, well, that's not going to cut. Let's quickly shoot Ken, get his coverage with the snow, and then we'll swing back around and get Dan. So, okay, we shoot Ken with snow. We swing back around, snow stops. I'm like, all right. I mean, to this day, I think we don't cut. I think we just you hear Dan's voice off screen like, "Come on, we got to go," and he's just staring there in the snow like, "Yeah, let's go," or something. But it was so all of the we had an earthquake, we had snowstorms, we had terrible cold weather, we had generator problems. Um, the only thing we didn't have is one case of COVID. Nobody got COVID, which we kept a bubble. We had there was an old hotel that people would stay at
Oh,
in the old West
yeah,
town,
that's
and it was an
perfect.
old West hotel. So our crew agreed that I think the government, sort of said, you guys are good long as everybody stays in
Mm.
this town. So, but it was very difficult, a difficult script that I was trying to, rewrite as we went, and running out of creative ideas on how to shoot the same location because they kind of get stuck in the saloon, with the guns and looking out the windows. And so a lot of action took place in the saloon. And, we'd start another day going, all right, how are we going to make the space feel different today? And I had storyboarded some of it, but it was humbling. I don't need to go on. It was humbling. It is now out on the market. It's got a distributor. I mean, it's good enough that, I kept my name on it. And again, there was creative differences with the producers in the end and how it was going to get finished. So it was, again, this is all film school for me at this point. And this was yet again, I learned a ton of lessons, both artistically, but also logistically. Pick and choose who you work with, pick the right projects, and make sure as I say at this point, everything should be a passion project past a certain age. I feel like I jobbed in on that. I'm not a big horror Western guy. So the next thing I'm doing, I'm hyper passionate about, and I wrote it. And again, we're going back, to this European comedy.
So before we get to the European comedy, how has your process looking at a script, because not all of these things were yours, somebody else wrote them. How has your process looking at a script changed? Because a lot of the roles you were getting before, as you said, you're jobbing in, you're not really creating a character, you're elevating what is already there. But your process when you look at something as an actor is very different than your process breaking down a script as a director. How
Yeah.
has that process changed, and what do you think you learned that you can apply back to acting? And obviously continuing on with the directing, but what are the lessons there?
That's a great question because the one thing that I've realized my strength is that as a director is that I am an actor, and I warn all my actors, when I get cast as an actor, I play that role. As a director, I'm playing all of these roles. I know your role better than you do, so you better be prepared. I know your lines, I know your intention, I know the arc of your character, I know how I'm going to shoot it, and it helps me tremendously as a writer and as a director that I have the ability, to look at the 87-year-old African-American woman in the same way I can look at the 12-year-old, Hispanic boy. I can know the character. I act as if, okay, if I'm playing that, what would I want to bring to it? What do I want to find here? Where's my objective? What's my goals here? And what's in the storytelling? And it's great because then I also, I know where they want to get to, and I've already thought about the language I might have to use to get them there, if that makes any sense. So
Oh,
basically, I'm a time saver too, because very often directors don't have the language to give to actors, the right words to push them in the right direction. I see them struggle on set, and like I'll hear them give a note, and I'm like, well, that's not helpful. I mean, like, well, just hit your mark faster. It's like, but why am I moving from this spot? I'm the person in command. I want to stay here. Is it for your camera? And sometimes I will say, yeah, I've got to get you up because the camera's going to then pan over to her. She's standing, you're sitting. If you get up, walk to her, then I can pan from her, and then we see her reaction. Otherwise, I got to do a cut thing, which is not as interesting to me. So sometimes you have to explain the technical, and as actors, I'll say, okay, I'll go halfway with you. The bar's there. Go get up, pour yourself a drink, and walk over to it. Will that help you? Maybe you want a drink at this point. It's like, yeah, that's good. I think I would want a drink because this is not something I'm comfortable talking about. So all of those little things that I thought would, be stuck in my actor head, I just use them. And as I said, I love the shorthand. We're talking to actors. I also am not a big yelling action guy. I mean, it's the Clint Eastwood thing a little bit of just, Clint gets on set, kind of make sure everything's set, and then he just walks away. So then the idea is start when you start. Some sets, depending on where you're at, like if we're on a large set with a bunch of horses and cowboys, action, that kind of stuff. But I mean, when you're in intimate settings, I like to just kind of be with the actors, talk to them, discuss some options, and then just kind of slowly back out, and then I tell my DP, you can, it's your set, you can, either the DP or the first AD, you can give me the action, but just not, keep it soft, and whenever you're ready, action. Nice and soft, because the idea of act now, act, shun. But and then also, like I said, so that, and the right is also with writing too. I take, the phone and I record, like the thing I was just writing, an older person, and I just took on like this kind of older voice, and I recorded like, why am I here? I don't understand. And I'm recording it, and I find the monologue for the character. I find the voice of the character, and I can do it for the female characters, the older, the younger, and that's just improving different roles, And so it helps tremendously as a writer. I'm confident in my dialogue. I'm confident. I'm still learning structure, and I know, that will come where that's just part of my DNA, the 3-act structure on the film. Because very often, as artists, I think we always want to, anything structural, we want to go against it, but there's something that kind of works. If I'm not going to use it, it should be by choice, not because I don't know how to do it,
I know when I first started producing, I always thought when I was working with writers, I could fix the problems with dialogue. And it took me years to realize, no, it's actually structure that you need. And if it wasn't set up right in the first act, that's why it doesn't deliver in the third act. And no amount of dialogue changes are going to change that. But I love that you are becoming the characters, and that is helping you flesh everything out because you are creating character-driven stories.
Yeah, going all the way back. Yeah, going back to what you're saying. Those. Oh, I totally lost my thought. You were just saying something about the improv and creating the characters. Oh, dialogue. Sorry.
Yeah.
Going back to your questions earlier, like when I'm reading a script, the dialogue very often, believe it or not, and this is something any screenwriter out there should want to hear, is not that important these days, because so often, especially depending on what level you're going to produce, a lot of the actors are going to contribute, whatever that might mean to you, improv or make writing. Some of them are actually really good. I've seen some actors give great writing suggestions, and there's a great. I'll do a sidebar real quick. Matt Damon tells a great story about being alone with Jack Nicholson when they were doing The Departed. Scorsese, they were doing some rehearsals, and Scorsese left. The Jack had just made a suggestion about something, and Marty loved it, and they're going to put it in. And Marty goes to the bathroom, and Matt said, we're just sitting there in silence, kind of just staring at the script. And then, Nicholson says, Matt, the reason I'm such a good actor, the reason I've survived this long as an actor is because I'm a good writer. Meaning to have the writer's mind and to make sort of those kind of contributions, you begin to realize he's probably contributed to a lot. I think the best actors have a writer's mind. We're storytellers. I mean, in the end, we're all just kind of moving a story forward. And so going back to dialogue, sometimes, as you said, if the act structure's there and the script is buttoned up and everything is great, but the dialogue isn't great, I can look right, I'm like, this is a good story. The dialogue can be fixed and will be fixed. And there are some writers who truly you can hire people to fix your dialogue. That's all they do is fix dialogue. So don't let that hinder you. I mean, like, the dialogue should be good, but just make sure that, like you said, the structure is there.
Dialogue's the last thing.
Yeah, because really,
if none of that other stuff works, it doesn't matter.
I'm just looking at the scene going, and every once in a while, if there's a really cool line, you're like, oh, great line, and that's cool. But like, if I just see in this scene, he's got to get the bag of money. And the dialogue to get there is a little clunky, but by the end he walks out. I'm like, okay, I'm following this. Follow the bag of money. That's cool. Okay, so now they're off in the car. So that's that. But the dialogue stuff, as I said, I take pride in my dialogue. But as I said, it's more the structure of the dialogue, especially with comedy.
Oh, absolutely.
So often these days, and this is again something that people need to hear. I get scripts that are just an overview. Like, they don't even write the whole script out. Like, it's a comedy, so we're going to improv the whole thing. About 5-10 years ago, this was incredibly popular. And I think it has died a quick death, and I hope it did, because so many of them were terrible. They would give you your character, and then...
that mumblecore or something. Yeah, that's what started it in independent film world. And I hated that.
Yeah, and it was just sort of the idea that we're going to make the film as we go along, and you're going to improv in character. And unless you cast some stellar group of sketch and improv actors, that's just going to be horrific. And so even now, I mean, with the thing I'm working on, I just wanted to make sure, especially especially when you're trying to raise money for a comedy, they're like, well, they got to think it's funny. And I mean, I know with the right cast, like some of these beats, like Zach Galifianakis could take this and make it so funny, but I've got to make it word funny so that they might chuckle at least a dozen times while reading the script, like, oh, that's a funny beat, that's funny. And I had friends reading, they're like, dude, there was at least a couple dozen where I'm like, you've already got the comedy in the script, it's built in to the DNA. Now you still, and I preface that to all investors, I'm like, there's still going to be improv. Just know, both as the director, I'm going to be like, oh my God, stop. Okay, let's move the camera. Like, guys, you mind? Get out of the car. Maybe they see something in the alleyway. You all get out. Then you have to come running back because it's a giant bear. You know, whatever that is that we might come up in the moment. But some actors that I'm interested in for this project are just not going to memorize the lines. Just not. I mean, or they'll have a sense of it, you know, and that's like Henry. I mean, on Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. I always tell people, I said, there were days Henry didn't, he would just show up and set like, you know, just kind of, I mean, not hungover. I would never say that. Maybe hungover. And he'd just be like, what are we doing? What is this? What's this scene? You know, meanwhile, Juilliard's all, I'm off book. I've got some suggestions, some ideas. And the editor said to me, thank God you were the tent pole for the editing, because you would pick up the coffee with the right hand every time. Henry's bouncing off the walls. Henry's improv. He goes behind you. He's but he said, long as you picked up the coffee with the right hand every time, I could just cut to you, because that would cut in. And then I could cut to Henry, who's there, but now in the time that you drank the coffee, he's now over there. But we didn't get the coverage to get him from right to left, you know. So I know a lot of these guys. I was just trying to think of the other one about improving. Oh my God. It's just another actor that I was thinking about that improvs a lot, but is really, really good at it. So anyways, I wanted to just make sure that, I was going to say De Niro. I worked with De Niro recently, and on the Alto Nights, which is out right now in theaters and quickly probably going to be on Amazon. But no, it was fun. I got to play his lawyer in this true life crime mob story, and got to spend a lot of time with him. And he does not memorize the lines, but intentional. He, you know, I was warned from the beginning, like he knows the lines, but he's going to give you his sense of the lines.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be ready at all times.
Paying attention, yeah.
And I'll tell you, it was a great lesson, because I, as an actor, had gotten lazy where I just memorized my lines. I know my lines. I know my lines. Let's just say our lines and go home. And when you work with Bob and you have to have a sense of the lines, because he may improv and take a sidebar that goes deep, and the director, which was Barry Levinson, wouldn't yell cut. And so we're just going on some like thing tangent that way. Then we'd reset and tangent would go that way. And a lot of it ended up in the film. It's great. But I said it was the greatest gift to have De Niro, you know, first of all, let all that intimidation of working with a great actor, you know, iconic, out the window, because it said, just be ready, do your work. And it was great to get back to having a sense of the scene, not just knowing your lines. Do you know what I mean? Like, why is this scene in the movie? And what does he need from you in this scene? What do you need from him? And where is the scene going? And so, like, I had one scene where I'm trying to talk him out of something. And I thought about it ahead of time, like, what tools do you have as his lawyer to stop him from testifying? You know, the threat of jail, the threat of not being his lawyer anymore. I wipe my hands at you, you know. So I had all that stuff there, and I ended up using a lot of it, and it was great. He kept me on my toes in a way that I had not been in a decade. You just can get in a lazy world of memorize the lines and hit your mark, you know. And it was so there's all this range with improv these days, you know, where you've got people who are really good at it, people that think they're really good at it, but in the end, in regards to writing, I still think you've got to have it on the page, especially with a comedy.
So what has been the biggest challenge, I guess, not like the specific little things that have gone wrong, but what's the learning curve or kind of the biggest challenge you've had in moving into this space where you're now the guy that has to have all the answers? You had to have all the answers as the character, but you still had somebody as the director kind of weighing in, or the writer weighing in. Now you're the guy who has to know what everybody wears, why they wear it, what they eat, all their backstories. what has been kind of the biggest learning curve moving into this? And then I want to talk about financing in a minute.
Yeah, no, I mean that it's exactly what you're saying. I mean, it is it's be careful what you wish for, because all of these directing jobs, I'm always like, you work so hard, work with the writer, to get the money, this, and then when it all finally comes together and you're ready to start, like, oh shit, now we got to make this thing. Okay. Okay, because it's all in your head and it's all on the page and it doesn't seem real. And then all of a sudden somebody says, we got the money. We're a go. And I mean, there's just this pit in your stomach of like, oh, the next 6 months are going to suck. Because it is, this, it's sleepless nights. It's things keeping you up. Like, why didn't that beat work? I'm a bad at direct. I mean, it's one thing to say you're a bad actor. I'm a bad director. The pressure, the pressure I mean, there's one sense that I'd have no pressure on myself. I've been a successful actor. If this directing thing doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. For some people, if I was 30 and this is my life goal was to direct, it is that kind of pressure. I can do a lot of this with a smile. I make sure that we're always having fun. I mean, coming where I come from, circling all the way back to Detroit in the 70s. I mean, come on. I don't work in a factory. I don't work putting rivets in Dodge trucks. And we're not curing cancer, to use the common adage. If we're not having fun doing this, and there's many days that are just not rip roaring fun, but I kind of do it all with a smile. I mean, the crews that I've worked with, like, I will work with you again anytime. It's so much fun being on your set because, again, I make a lot of jokes. I'm having fun. I am always looking to take the piss. I try to hire actors that take themselves very seriously and not seriously at all. And that is that combination of finding that person, because I feel like those are the perfect actors, because you hear the horror stories of people that don't take it seriously and are terrible, and the other way, take it way too seriously in character for 3 months, don't ever break character, and everybody around them's like, oh, he's Abraham Lincoln, and not mentioning names. But yeah, so it is finding that fine line, but it is the slog of getting to the starting line. And I will lead into the financing. I just want to direct at this point, but I can't, because my face, my name, and my career is what a lot of times my producers and investors are counting on. So they'll do a money meeting and it'll go okay. They do the same money meeting and they bring me and they're like, oh my God, can we get a picture with you? Oh my God, my daughter loves Billions. Oh, my wife watched you on Banshee. Oh, my mother watched all my children. They're going to flip out. So, we can take my resume and kind of find, I've been on TV for almost 40 years. There's something you saw. And so it's a way in. And very often these money people, they're no different than the rest of us. I mean, it's like, oh, it's all money, until they recognize a face and they go, oh, he's in this? Okay. Yeah, this could be fun. And so they take you seriously. So we do that with everybody. It's not just me. I mean, any actor I hire, I'm like, what have you done? Oh, he wrote Yellow Jackets. Your daughter, yes, she loves Yellow Jackets. Will you sign something? You're looking for those things. People apparently don't want to part with their money. I didn't realize that initially. I
have found, Matt, that if you tell them they can't afford to do this, like that, people have asked me for years, how did you get money on the stuff that you raised money for? I was not the pitch person. Yeah. I became that over the years and got better at it, but they were the person with the idea that didn't know how to make it. I was the person who could say, well, this is how you could make it. Yeah. But it was really about, if you can't afford to lose this money, you shouldn't write me a check, because there's no guarantee you're going to get your money back. Yeah. Here's the way I'm going to mitigate those things. Right. But you can't afford, maybe this isn't right for you because you can't afford that. And that, almost like that, being completely truthful and also kind of challenge, seemed to have people like writing checks. And that seemed to be the way I got things done. Like, other than kind of name cachet, I mean, you're obviously still struggling to get these things because people don't want to part with their money. Yeah. What are for the people who aren't Matt Servitto walking into the room and have that connection, like, what are some tips that you have found or things that you have found that have been helpful when you're pitching to get money? Yeah.
By the way, I just wrote that down. You can't afford it, because it's true. There's a macho element to so much of it.
Well, and you have to tell them, I mean, you have to say, if you aren't, if you don't have the money, if you can't afford to lose your investment, you can't invest in this product. And that is, legal, so you're not committing fraud. Um,
I think so often, there is the shallow element that, I mean, very often um, you're pitching the, like when I did the Western, we were able to raise some money and I did a lot of meetings for that. And very often I created a whole element on my emails. I would send some videos of myself with a cowboy hat on to some of the potential investors. My pitch was fun. You're not just investing in this one film. You're investing in the idea of a Western. Do you like what, so again, you kind of go into this whole world of money. Everybody loves a good Western. So I started doing emails that, like, I'd have a quote from, Gene Autry or something on the email. I kept making references to, like, join us at the rodeo. We are going to make this movie. It's going to be a blast. I invited them to come to set. Many of them came all the way over to Austria into the old town. I put them in the movie. I'm like, we need some background, even though those backgrounds were
I
like
remember doing, yeah.
zombies. These investors love getting made up like
Oh
zombies and the whole,
yeah,
yeah. So it's a participation,
sexy. Yeah.
and absolutely, you can come to cast parties. We're going to do an opening night. A lot of them love the idea that we did a red carpet, in their town, their little town, because I got hundreds of thousands out of that little town, and we brought Hollywood to their town, that kind of thing. So these are the things. It's selling more than just this one movie this the script. It is the idea of film, the what your movie is. I mean, whether it's a comedy, whether it's a Western, a genre piece, a horror, and then really personable. But in the end, I honestly, as you said, it is I'm sure, a talent that I'm going to learn that I don't want to, because really in the end, it's not creative. I mean, I'm trying to bring creativity to fundraising, but in the end, a lot of it is pretty cut and dry. And really in the end, when you look at the people you get, some of them I'm able to get with all that fun stuff, but really in the end, if they've got money, and like some of them are bored out of their minds of being rich. So you're like, it literally, sometimes I've learned, and as I'm sure maybe you did, I've also learned some financing terms. And the way you structure film deals now, the tax
Yeah.
incentives go a long way. I had one
Dude.
point on one project, I had 45% tax incentive. So I'm saying to them, almost 50 cents on how many investments do you make where they will guarantee almost half your money back if nothing
Yeah.
happens? If we never sell the film, you will get
Yeah.
50% of your money back. That is huge. So we feature the incentives. Pitch decks are great. I have spent thousands. Those are worth every penny. A really good pitch deck, because very often, I hate to break this to people, they're not going to read your script. I have people that have put hundreds of thousands, and I don't want to read your script. It's like they're saying, I wouldn't know the difference between a good script and a bad script. I have mad respect for that. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So you're at least admitting you're the actor, you're the director, you've read it, you like it. I'm trusting you and your taste. I'm like, great, good. But they love a good pitch deck. Oh my God, look at
So what's in your pitch deck? Like, walk me through what you always have in your pitch deck.
I try to find a personal thing. Like, for example, one of the projects we have going right now that's really moving along, a thriller set at the Jersey Shore called Off Season, shot in the off season, kind of a old house. Mystery writer goes down there to write her latest novels all the time. And when time she's there, like, a lot of the bad things from her novels all start happening to her. It's a lot of fun. And in the pitch deck, I immediately had my first page just have a really cool picture of the shore, roaring waves, old house up on the hill with like one light on, classic kind of Stephen King looking stuff, Dolores Claiborne, borrow from the best. And then, but then I wrote a personal note just saying, listen, I have a house at the Jersey Shore, my family does, on an island. I've been going there since I was born. There is one season which is magical, which is the summer. And then darkness comes, and the winter comes, and the off season is terrifying. The island shuts down. Most people close their houses, but you still can go down. The wind whipping. We lose power a lot because the grid is fragile. But there's like one bar open, one little corner store, and that's about it. Otherwise, you got to go off island. And I used to love going down like with my friends, play poker, go for a weekend of drinking, and just hang out. And the house would be shaking. We're drinking, playing cards, smoking cigars. But I always said, man, every time I'm there in the off season, it feels like a horror movie's ready to break out. All of that said, that's what I put in my personal message, just saying,
Why you?
why me?
Why you? Why now is
Yeah.
always a really important question for me.
And so immediately when I go out to Wall Street guys and gals with this pitch deck, They have houses in the Hamptons. They have houses at the Jersey Shore. They have houses in Delaware, Pennsylvania lakes. Everybody knows what a winter visit to a house that's empty feels like. So they immediately feel this connection. So that personal thing helps a lot. I've done it on almost everything I've written. And then we do, we rip, this is the great thing of the internet. I mean, we rip pictures of real actors that are suggest the type, like the lead in that is a actress over 60. So I could easily put in Sharon Stone, I could put in Parker Posey into the lead, and you'll see, and you can get a great picture of Parker like this, you know, and then we have a guy with like an axe, you know, great montage of stills that feel like they're almost from your movie. Anybody can grab those. I hate to, you know, there's,
you just have to make sure that you're telling people these aren't the actors in the film.
Of course. And then
the type of actors, because some newer people make the mistake of putting that together. And again, it kind of almost goes back to fraud, because no, you're not going to get these people.
Yeah.
Now you might be able to.
Yeah.
But I may not be able to, because I don't know who they are and I don't have an agent in common or an agent in common.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, I mean, it's then, you know, you have your synopsis, which you have to try to keep as short as possible, because I had people yelling at me at one point. I had a 3-page synopsis. They're like, they're not even going to get that far. They want a page. And it was hard, because one of the projects, I mean, it was brutal. I mean, you start with a log line. So it's like, okay, how you know, 2 sentences, describe your movement. What's your elevator pitch? So the log line's there. The synopsis is there. Keep it short. The photos. Then I did a locations page. I'm like, these are some of the locations. The lighthouse, the old bar on the islands, the fishing docks, you know, and it was all cool, all moody.
Setting mood and tone.
Yeah, we did black and white with some of the, you know, that whole deck is really moody and black and white. And then I'm just trying to think, and then contact information.
Do you put the team that you have together, like your DP or any of those?
Yeah, that one we didn't put you know, it depends where you are in the process. If you've already got a DP, that one we don't have a DP yet. I mean, it's only because if we're doing it at this price point, we'll do this DP. Yeah. Doing it at 10 million, we can get a major DP. But we have our producing team, writer, director, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And then we do, though I noticed some decks don't do this, we do a kind of fact sheet with a schedule, a budget, you know, so you really get, if you're really serious, you know, like you immediately want to kind of make it clear. And I'll talk a bit about this. This is also something that is interesting. There is a go big or go home element to all of this. Mm-hmm. In a weird way, it's harder to raise 2 million or $1 million than it is to raise 10. Because,
which sounds crazy, but you are 100% correct.
Right? Because when you're going to investors for a film, I mean, let's even lower it below $1 million, because I have traffic there. You know, when you're trying to make a movie for 500,000, even a civilian is going to say, "What the hell kind of movie are you making for $500,000?" Even I know movies take a couple million, just the lowest of the low, and they're right. Except if you're a student and all your friends are going to work for free, and you're going to throw all that 500,000 onto the screen. It's going to be in production value. So very hard to get. But then, but when they see, you know, 5 to 10 million, like, oh, you're serious. This is a real film. It's like, oh yeah, no, this is going to have Hollywood people in it. We're going to have a cast and crew out of LA and New York. Yeah, we're making a movie. This is, if you're serious about getting into investing in the movie business, this is a serious film. And I get more people listening at that level, because then you're almost kind of doing, and I mean, again, those people that we went to raise hundreds of thousands were family and friends. People, you know, there are people out there that have businesses that will put in, we sold shares. If you break it up into shares, I'm even doing this on a bigger project, but you know, when you're saying, yeah, man, I need $100,000 from you, I need 5 people to give me 100,000. No, forget that. You sell shares at like 10 to 20,000 each. Then everybody's got the relative that owns the landscaping company, or your uncle who's in construction, or, you know, the old friend you went to high school with that, like, if you had a beer with them, and they'd be like, hey, you know, one of 4 of you guys buy a share. And then you're getting this kind of camaraderie. And we did that. And we were able to kind of get some momentum going once we had, and people always want to hear that you have some money. Nobody wants to be first. So even if you can get a friend to write a check for a few thousand, that technically is first money. So if you say you got first money in, you can roll that. You can do a Kickstarter, you know, whatever it's going to take. And don't ever.
Do you put any of your own money in? I mean, the rule is don't spend your own money.
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
out
and I
there.
haven't.
I've made that mistake, but
I
yeah.
should say not directly. I mean, I insisted on a specific editor for my Western in LA. I don't live in LA, I live in New York. So you could do a lot of it virtually, but eventually I said, look, I'm also this is again about this collaboration. This technology that you and I are doing right now, I love it. But man, would I love to be sitting with you, just, talking to you one on one. But this can't happen without this technology, which is
Yeah.
great. But the things that you can do virtually were, and it was going fine. But then I got on a plane, and we got so much better. We had a
Yeah.
camaraderie in the room. We were laughing. We could quickly fix something as opposed to an hour on a Zoom going,
Mhm.
no, what did you do? No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it was so much easier. So I started flying myself to LA every couple months. I'd fly out on my dime because my producer said, that's your choice that you hired him. We have an editor right here. I said, I know. So to answer your question, and even when I was over there, I mean, a lot of times I'm dropping my card to buy the crew, a round of beers, kind of stuff. So, um, but you are also directly invested in your films as well. You have the back end, you have the points, and when you're making, films at a certain price point. But there is the proliferation of film festivals and the access to technology. I mean, I'm scared on a daily basis as to how fast things have gone. You can make a really good film for no money. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just incredible how quickly, and this is again when I talk about collaboration, when I talk about going to a location, going to a physical location and how it feeds. That first Star Wars, they went to Morocco, they went into the desert, they shot that stuff. Now, Mandalorian's all shot on a green screen studio in Long Beach. And do I know the difference? Mandalorian was amazing. It was great. And that scares me because I'm
Yeah.
sitting there thinking being on a location changes everything. Being with your cast and crew on location changes everything. There's just the element of collaboration and creativity that happens in these moments. You watch the making of Jaws. I mean, being on Martha's Vineyard in a boat with the shark, with the machine. They said that movie only got better because they would go back every night into the cabin and rewrite all the next day scenes, Spielberg and the actors. So anyways, all of that being said, just talking to the people that may be listening, there is, an ability now on a weekly basis. I'll see something on my phone like, okay, 2 years ago, I paid $50,000 to a guy in India to digitize something like this. There's an app on your phone that is actually pretty damn close to what I paid for. You know this. I mean, this
Yeah. It's crazy.
technology is blowing my mind, and I'm like, I think my grandkids will be making movies that look as good as anything we're doing right now on this, if not something smaller. So the technology's there. There are a ton of more film. I mean, Jesus, the first short I
So
ever
many.
did in 1998, there were maybe a couple dozen festivals. Those were the ones you hit. That was it. If you didn't get in, you didn't get in. I cannot believe. So when we rolled out my shorts, I mean, holy hell. Um, the film Freeway is
Hmm.
amazing, but it's also addictive. It's expensive.
Inexpensive.
Yep,
Yeah.
it starts adding up, and that's what I said. I started realizing like, okay, let's some discretion here. I mean, what they'll also play you. It's sort of like there is a really good film festival called the Palm Springs Film Festival.
Hmm.
There is also, the Palm Springs Movie Festival. There's
Oh, yeah.
also the Palm Springs Flicks at Night Festival. Like that's people are playing that you don't know the difference, and even though they rate them on Film Freeway, and I give them credit, they try to give the amateur a sense of where this film stands, this film festival stands. But so there is my point to this. There is access. There is a way to get out there. There is a lot of fun. You will meet mostly other filmmakers, and there's just not as many. What's the word? Executives, talent scouts out there at these things because they can all watch them on their laptop, and they do. So even when the film festivals came back robustly, and you go now and there's 200 people in the room, it still means you've got to get it to somebody who will watch it down on their laptop. And it sucks because you made it for a movie screen and now almost everybody watches it, like this. And so this technology is amazing, and yet it's also kind of debilitating. So
Yeah.
interesting to see where it may all be going.
So last question, because we're out of time or about out of time. We started a little late. being a New Yorker,
Hmm.
there's a lot of money in New York. You know, you're talking about the Wall Street guys, but I just know because you and I have been trying to schedule this call, you've also been taking a lot of meetings in LA. You mentioned, well, actually, now two questions because I didn't get back to something. If you have a second, you mentioned you recently sold something. So is this something that you wrote and you've sold off and you're not going to do, or is this something you finished and got distribution? What did you briefly during our conversation said something about you just recently sold something?
Yeah, it's neither. Actually, what I did is well, it is maybe the first. I have sold, I wrote the script. I didn't sell the script because I'm going to control it. Because I am going to direct it, and this has been a struggle for me to hold on to the helm of this project because once it gets to a certain price point and you've got certain A-listers involved, they may demand, a director of a certain caliber be directing, especially on something that is a big, sprawling movie. Um, and I've insisted, this is one of those stand your ground moments. Sylvester Stallone offered, I forget how many millions for the script of Rocky, and he said, I have to direct it. I have to direct it and I have to be in it. And they're like, no, 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 we just want scripts. That's fine. If I sold you the script, I'll be broke again in 6 months. If I direct this, I'm in it, and I'm broke again in 6 months, I'm okay with that because I tried. I took my shot, and that's how I feel. This is my coming out party as a director and a writer. If it flies at the altitude I think it can, it's rare air. I mean, we are in a place, and it got there very fast, and it's one of those, it's just be nice to people. I mean, this is a friend of a friend of a friend. I mean, it's that kind of a thing where, the guy that I did the short film for, who I could have just easily dismissed, and we've stayed in touch, and he's written a feature, and we've worked on other stuff. He knew somebody who knew somebody in LA, and all of a sudden a phone was handed to me, and I'm like, hello, and the next thing I know, my world was exploding. So it can happen. As I said, it's be careful what you wish for, because if this does go, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be huge, both directorially, physically. I mean, it's just a lot. It involves international travel, domestic stuff, lots of physical comedy, and it's big. And so but again, there is so many requirements and I'm trying to do it independent of a studio. Because again, because I had meetings with some studio people, and it's like, they will take control. They will have,
Oh,
we all know it. They'll have casting control. And really, because it's a comedy, it's so personal to me that I could write a drama, and if you totally change the drama, but the story was still the same about love loss, I could take it. If I'm sitting in Video Village watching my script just get destroyed, like that was a laugh line. No, and because she's in frame. If she's not in frame, that's where okay, I'll shut up. And I'm like, don't do it to yourself. Like, hold control as long as you can. If the right director got thrown right in I'm like, I love his films or her films. Yes. Okay. I will now sit in Video Village and shut my mouth because they have two of my favorite, films. But so far so good, but I can't get into too many details because, they keep this stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You just had mentioned that you sold something, so I was going to ask you more about that. So we'll pivot then.
Yeah.
So my actual last question was, you've got Wall Street money, but then you've got the seat of Hollywood in LA. Where are you finding more traction as you pitch to people, as you try to get things made, as you try to get financing? Are you seeing that the money and control is still in LA, or do you think you could make something happen with New York money?
I think it's also, we are in an international society now, and there isn't, like, for example, I'm dealing with a lot of foreign money at the moment. So believe it or not, a lot of film financing comes from overseas.
Oh, yeah.
Lots.
And they also give a shit about the arts. So those countries often put money into the arts. And
Yeah,
that's why we're getting our ass kicked in incentives and
yeah,
everything is out of the country.
yeah. There's a lot of international. I mean, and also, I mean, I don't want to end this on a note of warning, but I mean, it's nothing that we haven't been seeing coming for a while. I've been spending a lot of time in LA, a lot of time in New York, obviously, but there is a uneasiness in the business right now. These are it not only in the political climate in the world that we're in, where 100% tariffs get smacked on films. You're like, what? You couldn't even enforce this. To
Yeah.
understand the concept of what is a foreign film is trying to understand what's a foreign car. It's like, so a Toyota made with Korean parts in Kentucky, where is that car from? What is the car, and who owns most of the stock in Toyota? It's insane because films are put together, again, as you know so well,
Yeah.
in such a Frankenstein sort of way. It's like I said, right now, if everything went as I planned, I mean, we've got some European money, we'd have some Asian money. Some of my movies being shot out of the country, some of it's being shot in the country. I wouldn't even begin to tell you, is it a domestic shoot? Is it a US? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah.
anyways, all of
Very
that said,
complicated.
everybody, the unnerving of the uh, economic climate is trickled
Mhm.
in. They used to say, the two businesses that were impervious to the ups and downs of the economy were the mob and films.
Yeah.
Because even when people have no money, they will pay their cable bill because they're depressed and they want to watch their shows,
Yeah.
or whatever, stream their things on their phone. So, but it's just amazing to me that there is a paralysis going on right now. Nobody wants to invest. Nobody knows. Everybody wants a genie. Everybody wants somebody to, a soothsayer or some, look into the future, because they were trying to guess. The studios and a lot of the companies were trying to guess the future. Some of them were wrong. And they don't, well, they're like, well, if that's not how we monetize this, how do we monetize it? So
Yeah.
it has gotten, everyone's looking for an answer, and they're waiting for an answer, meaning they're not green lighting things. So in a
Yeah.
weird way, and I'll finish it on a positive note, my takeaway from a lot of that, it's a great time to be independent, because
Mhm.
the studios and the networks are cowards and they're stuck and they don't
Yeah.
know what to do. And I don't mean to be so, they're not, they've always been a little bit, because they have stockholders. So in a
Yeah.
weird way, I think it's a good time to be working independently. It's why I'm trying to keep this independent. But I want to say to anybody that's listening, that's a young filmmaker or a writer, it's your time now, because the sense I'm getting from people is like these film festivals may become more important, because if a studio isn't going to make films, and here's this really great film at Sundance that's a sweet little story, not expensive, and they can buy it and throw it up on their network, they'll like, you go make it for us and then we'll buy it. We don't know what to make because we keep
Yeah.
making mistakes. So in a weird way, I think it's a really, I'm positive, as much as so much of my coffees and drinks in LA and New York these days are kind of pessimistic. I'm like, you know what though? I'm jazzed as an independent filmmaker, because I think this is the future. And maybe all this will circle back to the little guy, having a chance. It's a little bit what happened in the music business. Used to be, I didn't know somebody. Once you could make your own music, and now you can put your content. I mean, it's kind of happening with TikTok. And as much as we want to badmouth all the influencers and everything, you can make your own thing. You can
Yeah.
make your own videos. You can make your short. I find so many funny, as somebody who's writing comedy and looking for actors right now for some of my comedy projects. I'm doing a ton of casting off my phone. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God, this guy puts these videos up every day. I laugh at them every day. He just makes funny 30-second, 1-minute videos. I'm like, gee, and they're always good. And I'm like, so as much as we all like, oh God, these people, I'm like, no, there is
Yeah.
some great creativity. And I just think, as we all try to kind of hold on to whatever the future is, it may just, uh, be already there.
I was surprised. So I've been going to the Atlanta Film Festival for 33 years. I'm just starting out PA, and then as somebody who could never get into the festival with her projects, then as somebody who got into the festival, I tried to get on the board. I got on the board. I did that for years. And now I've kind of circled back as a member of staff. So I've done things all wrong.
Yeah.
But having gone for 33 years and having so many different connections to the festival, I was shocked at how many industry professionals I saw this year, because it always pisses me off. Like, come on, guys, support independent film, come out to the festival. There were so many professionals out at the festival this year who are traditionally not independent filmmakers.
Yeah.
And they all said to me, I'm bored. I have all this gear. I want to see who's doing cool things and just learn about the independent side of the business, because I don't know any. I was just a guy who showed up and was a camera operator or the DP. I don't know how the business works. I want to learn because I want to get more into helping independent filmmakers make art, because that's where I see the future. So
Yeah.
I think it also comes back to that money. And yes, you can make great art for no money, but since none of us are working in the real industry, there needs to be some money. But I think there's a lot of really talented people right now who are looking to make independent films and help the next generation of artists come up to the point where they can start to get money and learn and grow and really create something. And I know George has been trying to do this. I mean, we've all been knocking our heads against a wall for 30 years, but I think you're right. It is an exciting time for independent filmmakers to really come out and make their mark. And it's intimidating to make these short films because everybody thinks you have to spend so much money on them.
Yeah.
But I think you find that DP who's got the equipment, you find the wardrobe person who's got a bunch of wardrobe in the basement, you talk to people, you collaborate, you find out what people have, and then what can I create that is still going to be great. And you've got all these actors who aren't working. So I think the possibilities are limitless right now. Again, we all still need to somehow pay our mortgages and our bills, but I think it is an interesting time.
That's what is frustrating. I don't want to keep belaboring, but it's quickly becoming a side hustle for too many people, if that makes sense. I mean, we were all professionals, getting paid living wages to create movies and art and television and theater. And everyone's holding on by a thread. I mean, everybody. And that's so once I saw some of my friends that, as you said, worked 25 years in a row. I mean, always on a show. And they're texting me, Servitto, what's going on? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, you got to be on a show. They're like, I haven't worked in 8 months. I'm like, you're not working? I mean, who is? And they're like, I don't know. I mean, LA was a ghost town. And everybody, so it's a lot of people, too many people available for coffee. I said, I've never had somebody, I used to call them like, oh, dude, I'm shooting this movie, or, oh, God, I work Monday through Friday on this sitcom. No, everybody's like, what time? Where whatever. But as I said, I feel like there's got to be a turning point, and especially for actors, I feel since it's still that my original passion, there went from an embarrassment of riches during the streaming golden age about 5 years ago, where it's like there were so many shows and so many things going on, and now and then it just boom, the bottom dropped out and there's just none. And so and they're doing more for less, non-union. I mean, eventually they're just going to have our avatars and can make whatever they want. But it is, we came out of that strike and we all felt good having gone through COVID. It's just been a combination with the industry that suffered tremendously during COVID, then a writer strike, an actor strike, and then coming back thinking, okay, here we go, 2025. It's finally going to,
survive till 2025.
Yeah, there was something about
2025.
Yeah. I haven't heard the 26th one yet. Yeah, it was survived to 24. First, there was something in 24, like we'll get more in 24. No, survived to 25. No. So we've got to find a word that rhymes with 6 and go on. But I think in the end, like I said, it's just these are. I'll just end with saying strange times, and I don't. Maybe we're not going back to the normal. What seemed normal for maybe a century. Of how things were made and how commercials paid for things and how deals were made. And maybe something really positive will come out of all this,
Yeah. We can only hope.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for giving me so much of your time today. I really appreciate it. I wish you all of the luck on all of these things, that all of the plates that you have spinning. And I hope to see it pop up on IMDb that you're off someplace fabulous doing something.
The minute I can tell you, it'll be in the trades, and I'll send you an email. And but it's just so great to see your face and talk and like. We did for so long. And
maybe next year we can have a conversation
about all the lessons
learned on this big thing that you got to make.
You know what? And I keep saying, because now's about the time, if I was smart, I'd start keeping a journal, because we're like, it's just at the genesis. We're just starting here, and it's sort of like it could. And like you said, getting it. We're hoping to have it in theaters. Because it's a comedy horror for Halloween 2026, so nice. It's truly like a year and a half of just sort of finishing. It's just then I've got post, and it's got an amazing soundtrack, tons of VFX, and all this kind of stuff. So, but it'll be a romping good time around Halloween to go see this crazy movie.
Well, I don't know if you heard that we just had a huge military jet fly over. That's why I was like, what is happening?
No.
I'm on the coast of Florida. Yeah. So we get a lot of them traveling from Tallahassee down, but I don't know. Usually I go running outside to see what it is, but that was huge. But wow. You should write things down, because you know, there is a memoir in your future, right? And our brains can only hold so much information. So start keeping a journal of all those things, so you can write your fabulous memoir 10 years from now about the insane career that you've had and how you managed to have this fabulous transition to the tour director that we hope you become, and just have fun. But thank you guys. Thank everybody for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and enjoy more of the Creative Conference while you have a chance. Thanks.